What's up, guys? Welcome back to DASAP Automotive Channel, and today we're back at it working on our LSTJ Project 6.0, and what we're going to do is start teaching you or showing you guys how to do the wiring on one of these things, so stay tuned. All right, guys and gals, so if you've ever heard the phrase, the last 10% of a project takes 90% of the time, welcome to it, the wiring. So, we've got pretty much everything else done here, to this point. So now, we were trying to figure out how we were going to do this, how we were going to shoot, the wiring, because it's kind of a big undertaking. There's a lot to it, and the thought was just do it all at once, but that's one big, long, boring video, and nobody wants to watch that. So what we should try to do is break it down into sections for you guys. And remember, this is assuming that you sent your ECM and your harness off for the 6.0 or 5.348, whatever, your GM, off to Novak to have them go through the harness, thin it out, and tune the ECM and such, and you got some of their other harness stuff to integrate with the Jeep harness, and you'll see that as we go through here. So today's main focus is going to be, to keep this from being a super long video, is today we're going to focus on laying out the GM harness, which you've already kind of seen we already have. So I'm going to kind of walk you through, and a lot of it's just plugging in the stuff, so it won't take that much time. And then second is going to be mounting the ECM and the brackets for it and what we came up with there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up on the top side creeper and start walking you guys through some of the stuff we've done. So what we've already done is kind of laid out the harness and started connecting stuff. If you got your engine in, if you pulled it out of the truck yourself or whatever, then you should be familiar with it. But if you bought it, you probably still had to take off the harness anyways. But a lot of it's just kind of laying it out and plugging everything back in. A lot of it's, pretty simple, because a lot of these connectors are different. They only plug in one way. And a lot of this stuff Novak labels for you, like this one here is knock sensor. You had ALT for alternator, mass airflow, MAF. So that was a really cool thing they did. The only thing I did notice was, the coil packs, that harness was separate. They stayed with the racks or coils. We just had the harness going into each side. Now the fun part, let's see what this label was here. Yeah, so they tell you bank 1 and bank 2. Bank 1, of course, is always wherever cylinder number 1 is, wherever it starts. So, but the problem we ran into was with the injectors. They weren't labeled, and the way they were kind of routed afterwards and taped up, it was a little kind of iffy. What I did was, a surefire way is they're going to share the same common ground color, but the hot side will be different on each one of them. It'll be a different color. So if you pull up a wiring diagram, you can look up and see injector number 1 is such and such color, let's say pink with white stripe or something like that. So it's a good fail-safe method if you get it back and you're not sure, because you're going to plug it in wrong, because they are the same connector for each one. You're going to plug it back in wrong, you're going to have a fun issue trying to chase down. So, but the coil side was easy. They just plug in their bank 1, bank 2. So you've got, make sure you plug in your knock sensor here, like we showed you in the other video, where it comes up and goes here. That's where it plugs in there. You've got your map sensor here. You've got your oil pressure sensor and your cam sensor, the ones we put in the other day when we were doing the valley and the knock sensors. You got to plug those back in. And remember, those are for the GM ECM. Those aren't the ones that we did for the Jeep one, which are, I think, down on this side. And the coolant sensor is back over here on this one. But go through, plug up your throttle body. You've got a couple of grounds. You've got one here in the back there. Actually, I think both, if I remember correctly. We actually did this a couple weeks ago, so bear with me. Yeah, we've got one ground back there, and I think there was another one back on one of the heads. But you should have 2 separate grounds. That is very crucial to make sure those are up. If the computer doesn't have proper ground, you're going to have a lot of fun. So, but the key there is just kind of take your time, you know, lay everything out, see how it's going to lay. Kind of, there's going to be times where you plug something in, realize, well, crap, I wanted to reroute it this way. You know, just take your time. There's going to be a lot of that until you get it laid out where you want it and it looks clean. Now, once again, back at the issue that we're still running the 5-speed. We got our harness laid out and everything, and you know, naturally with the harness and everything, the ECM wants to lay somewhere over here. You know, with what you've got here, you maybe could fish it over there, but there's really nowhere. And the way everything shows on Novak, a lot of people stuff theirs down in a hole over there. But as you can tell, the problem we have is we've got a master cylinder there for the clutch, and you've got the line going down there, so that kind of eliminates that. Especially got an Elite, that would really suck because you're getting right on the ECM. So what we did is we decided to go ahead and mount ours right here, because we're doing away with the evap canister and all that stuff anyways. We decided it was just a perfect spot for it here, you know, because we bypassed our, you know, purge solenoid, all that kind of stuff. None of that's on there. So this is the bottom side bracket. If you, like I said, this is assuming you send it off the Novak and everything. This is what you get back, is a bracket like this. What we did is the way the inner fender contours here, we drilled 3 holes, one here, and one there. Did a couple of socket head bolts down in here, and we got a little spacer down here for that bolt. I think it was probably about 3/8 of an inch, guys, to kind of level this out. And when we tighten those down, it gives us a good rock solid. You don't even need that 4th one because it really drops off there, but a really good solid foundation. So what you do is, once you get that bolted in there, what we did is came over here and you just simply lay the computer in. And what I would recommend here is kind of like what we did, is we laid this out, see where it sits. You know, make sure you're not hitting here, make sure you're not hitting here. You know, it's still fairly easy to get this ECM out once the rest of it's on there, if you got to change a master cylinder or booster or something like that. This is some of the stuff you want to think of, is you don't screw yourself to where you're like, well, crap, now I've got to tear half the Jeep apart to do something, you know, simple. It's still easy to get out, so don't get so hung up on trying to get away from that where you can slide it off, because it literally takes you 2 minutes to get the ECM out. Once this is mounted in here, you got a little catch here. Make sure it's slid up. Everything's sitting down good. This is the other part of the GM harness here from Novak, and it simply just goes on around like, you know, and goes on down. And then you've got a couple little Allen head bolts like so that came with it, and you just start them and then tighten them down. I angled it down to keep a little tension on the ECM so it's not moving around. Now if you notice here, this is what all comes, this is now your power distribution center for your GM, you know, harness setup. You know, before the GM1 had its big honking setup, and those are actually really cool to use for a lot of swaps in different vehicles, because you've got a ton of different, you know, you can, you know, it's endless what you can do, because you got so many circuits that go in there. They're a great setup for it. You don't typically have problems with them with reliability like you did some of the older power distribution blocks, but everything's there, all your relays. And putting it here, once again, makes everything nice and simple. It's easy to work on. It's right there. You know, this stuff's buried on down in there. It's kind of a pain in the butt if you got to do any kind of diagnosing or troubleshooting later on. Puts it all right out there in the open. It's easy to get to. So once you do that, you just put your, like I said, just put your 4 screws in, and then tighten them down, and then just make sure there's pressure on that there. So when this came in, this was actually separate. It came with some of these Phillips head screws and some of these spacers. This is how we set ours up. I forgot we had put all this together. It was separate. And it comes in a little baggie with all this when you get the harness back. So that's what we went. You know, for any of you guys running the you know, a manual transmission, It's the easiest way we found to do it. So if you guys find another easy way, you know, man, feel free to put it in the comments or, you know, something like that. Show us. We'd love to see. So, but, you know, that's pretty much it for the GM harness in particular. And what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to show you guys about wiring up the fan and wiring up the check engine light. So, all right, guys, so that's going to wrap up the first episode of our little, I guess, call it sub-series in this series on, you know, dealing with just the wiring in this thing. So, like I said, we showed you guys, you know, how to kind of lay out your harness, just plug it, make sure everything's plugged back in. Also, we got, you know, your O2 sensors down there. We'll show you that, guys, when we go over the in the exhaust video. We'll show you guys putting those in. They're really simple and just simply plugging them in. So, but that shows you how to kind of lay out your harness, kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, and kind of give you an idea how to route this stuff and mounting your ECM. The next video, we'll go over wiring up the fan assembly and how to run the check engine light for the GM ECM. So until next time, guys, remember, stock is not an option.